Well, joining us in the studio to discuss this development is a UK solicitor and public affairs analyst, Femi Aina. Good morning.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
Now, the question on the lips of a majority of persons is if we are finally on our way to breaking this jinx of the Orosanye report, because this is not the first time we are on this path. Recall that former President Goodluck Jonathan also talked about, implementation of this report. They came up with a white paper. Former President Buhari also came up with a white paper to also addressing the implementation of this report. Now we are here. Are we on our way to fully implementing this?
Yes, that's what they call deja vu. That means we've been there before. And, well, if the political will is there, definitely the implementation will happen. And it is very important to state that, you see, a modernized civil service is an essential part of democracy.
Absolutely.
And the reason being, politicians, before getting to power, we make promises that we will do this and this. Some of those promises will not be fulfilled in a million years. And those that will be fulfilled, or they're going to implement, let's use that word, the civil service is very essential when it comes to implementation. And if you listen to some of these governors, they will tell you that, look, whatever we get from federation accounts, once we pay the civil service, there is nothing left. There is nothing left. That has been the complaint all along. So it is very essential to have a lean civil service that is efficient, that is productive, and that will deliver outstanding public service. And the only way, part of the ways in which you can achieve that, training is very essential. At the same time, rationalization, margin, which we are talking about, is also essential. But my own concern is this. And that is the question we need to ask. Has there been a cost-benefit analysis regarding the implementation? Number one, the media report is that, look, if they implement the Orosanye report, they're going to save, it will lead to a saving about 860-something billion naira per annum. That's a substantial amount of money, which the government can use to implement other projects. And now that we are in a trying period, whereby the government is giving, you now have a government that is gradually turning Nigeria into a welfare state, that once we have problem, government will come and say, look, we are going to give you 25,000, we are going to give you 10,000. The question is, where will that money come from? So if we have this margin and that rationalization, and we can save a substantial amount of money, that will help. But I have a concern, and that concern is this. Number one, you work here. In your contract of employment, there is something they call mobility clause. Number one, if the mobility clause is not there, you are in Lagos now. Tomorrow the employer can tell you go to Abuja. But the question remains, is there a mobility clause in your contract of employment whereby they can deploy you to somewhere else? Now, some of these civil, if you have the merger, the acquisition, and what have you, which we are talking, the rationalization, that we are talking about. The question remains. Some people are going to be surplus to requirement. And when people become surplus to requirement, what lawyers call it is, what will happen is redundancy. Okay? Now, let me simplify it. Now, they are going to merge ICPC with EFCC, and it will be one commission. Now, the EFCC, they have their own accountant. The ICPC, they have their own accountant as we speak. If you match the two together, does that mean we are still going to have two accountants doing the same job for that commission? So what will happen? One will have to go. Now, if care is not taken, the one that we have to let off is likely to take legal action against us, because if we don't approach it with care. Now, the government needs to think carefully that if you carry out merging ministries, scrapping some agencies, how are we going to compensate these people? Because what you are doing, technically by law, is a breach of their contract. Because you are the one who come. You see, if at the end of the day somebody decide that TVC will join another television organization, that's not your fault. No. That is management decision. And somebody needs to compensate you. So we need to work out that, look, are we going to compensate people who are going to lose their job? Number one, those who are going to go on secondment, is it in their contract of employment? We need to think about that too. And at the same time, we're not saying there's nothing wrong. If you have a lean civil service that is very effective, that is very productive, but at the same time, that modernization must take account of the fact that, look, there's a legal implication for what we are going to do. And I must say this to you, if care is not taken, the people that will be let off, a lot of them are going to go to court. Money are going to be spent defending all these cases in court. But if you have a good formula, take for instance, if you are going to make them redundant, because number one, the job is no longer there. We have scrapped the agencies. One, you need to apply a formula. Are we going to use first in, first out, or last in, first out? That is one, because if your selection is not. Number two, you need to have a discussion with their union so that you don't create another problem. So the consultation is very important. You can come out and say, look, we are going to implement a Rosaye report, this and that, we need a lean civil service. There's nothing wrong with that. But consultation is very essential as well. Okay. Otherwise, if you are not careful, you will get overwhelmed with unnecessary legal cases.
Okay,